So you've probably been reading on different online forums like Bigger Pockets or watching YouTube videos about different creative ways of how you can break into real estate with no money down, right? I mean, the titles are all sexy. They give you all these awesome details about good strategies, right? Like potential owner financing, subject to property, raising money. And basically the whole gist of it is you can figure out creative ways to get it and buy a piece of property without actually putting in your own cash. And these resources and these ideas are super valid. I have no problem with those, right? They certainly work in some types of markets. But especially if you live in an expensive market like I do, right? I live in Boston, where pricing is very, very high. The competition is sky high, right? I mean, there's so much capital chasing deals, any sorts of deals with a pulse here, right? I think the issue is these strategies of no money down can be a little misleading, right? Because they're very, very, very difficult to execute when you're dealing in such high stress and very intense markets. I remember just about 5 years ago or so, right? I was a newbie and I was digging deep into these strategies. I had pages of notes on how to execute on each of these strategies. And I was super excited, right? Because I didn't have any money and I wanted to break into the game. But I created this video because many years later, after going through a lot of these things, I've learned that it's just in these particular markets, right, that are super intense, super competitive, pulling these sorts of things is very unlikely, if not impossible, right? So I want to talk about why that's unlikely, right? So that you don't see me as just a negative Nancy. And then I'll actually tell you what I found to be the best way to actually break into the real estate investing game without any of your own money. What's going on, guys? My name's Lior, and if this is your first time to my channel, welcome to it. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, it only takes once, right? Click that subscribe button for me. That way you'll be notified every time I put out a new video on real estate investing so you can get notified. Also, if you are looking for a free cash flow analyzer, make sure to check out the comment section. I give away my free one, right? So you can start analyzing rental deals today. So let's jump right into it. So I'm first going to talk about two of the most common strategies that you might read online about ways to execute real estate without any money down. And I'll show you the flaws with these sorts of strategies. One of them I actually used today, so I'll tell you exactly from experience why it's very, very difficult to execute. And then I'll actually give you guys the strategy that I use to start to break into the game and build on my portfolio. So the first one that's probably most commonly talked about on Bigger Pockets, on different YouTube channels, is owner financing. And look, don't get me wrong, owner financing sounds sexy, right? Like it's a great theory, right? You can go find the right type of seller who's has enough equity in the home. Maybe they don't want to take a hit on capital gains. They want to continue to create an income stream, even though they're tired of managing the property. So boom, all the stars align, and you're gonna be able to structure a deal where they become the bank. They'll finance you the deal, and you won't have to bring any money to the table, right? And again, sounds amazing on paper, but here's the reality, right? When, especially, as I said, in these insanely competitive markets, if you're going to go to an owner and try to structure out a deal with owner financing, 99.999% of the time, there's going to be another investor literally 20 feet away ready to come in with cash, hard money, commercial bank financing, whatever it is, right? There's a plethora of capital chasing deals with even any sort of pulse in the Boston area, right? And I'm sure that's true for markets like New York, Miami, markets in California, any other big markets or that are super resilient and have a lot of capital chasing deals there. So it's very, very tough. It's going to be very, very tough to try and structure this kind of deal with owner financing, when the owner can literally just turn his head and find another investor that's just going to buy him out, clean deal, boom, done, right? Now, again, maybe if you live in markets like the Midwest, somewhere in the South, maybe Southwest, yeah, and they're not as hyper competitive as maybe primary markets like Boston, etc. Yeah, maybe you can find us. It's certainly possible to find those kinds of owners, and there's obviously plenty of success stories online. But, when you're talking about dealing with the best of the best, the top of the market, it is going to be very, very, very difficult to try and structure that. And not only is it going to be difficult, but let's say you actually find the deal, right? Let's say you go out there, you pound every single door, and you actually find someone willing to owner finance, either a small part of the deal or let's say a large part of the deal. Well, the question becomes, how are you actually still going to close on a deal, right? Because unless the owner finances you 100%, and now you're really talking about the unicorns, right? Chances are they're probably going to find, if they decide to finance you, maybe they'll finance you 25%, 20%, 30%, right? Usually like the down payment equivalent. You're still going to have to come up with the rest of the financing in order to close on a deal. So naturally you're going to think, well, great, I'm just going to go to a bank and pull a loan. Well, if you're chasing deals with no money down, I'm going to go ahead and assume you probably don't have a ton of capital saved up, right? Because I remember when I was thinking about pulling this off, I had very little cash in the bank. So first of all, are you even going to be able to qualify for a residential loan, right? Chances are probably not, right? Because you probably don't have the income, you probably don't have the cash, the proof of cash to show them that you have enough money for a down payment. Because remember, residential lenders, they have to stick to very strict criteria. They're going to have to go through all the Fannie Freddie guidelines, and you actually have to show them the income, the cash that's going to be used for the down payment. So if you're just going to waltz up to a bank and try to grab a residential loan and say, oh, don't worry, the owner's financing me 30%, we're good. Yeah, that's not going to be a very fun conversation for you. So let's say you decide to go, well, you know what, I'm going to go with a commercial lender. Well, if this is your first deal and you're trying to bring in a commercial lender, yes, typically commercial lenders are the ones that will show a lot more flexibility and more creativity. But if this is your first deal and you don't have experience, you don't have portfolio, more importantly, you don't have cash reserves and you don't have a balance sheet to back up the loan, that's going to be a very, very difficult pitch for you to a lender, right? Most lenders are probably going to shoo you right out the door because that's a super risky loan for them, right? Because even though commercial lenders, they typically will look at the deal first, believe me, they will still look at the borrower, they'll still look at their cash positions, their income, and everything else. So it's going to be a very, very difficult pitch for you. Your only real option is probably going to be hard money loans. And to be honest, if you're going to go try to put a buy and hold down with a hard money loan, as well as an owner finance component to it, your debt is going to be so high. I mean, you've got to find not a home run deal, not even a grand slam deal. It's got to be even better than that, right? So we're basically talking about the unicorns of unicorns in terms of really being able to execute and pull this deal off, again, in competitive markets. Strategy number 2 that I see online on both BiggerPockets and all the other channels is essentially raising money for the deal, or OPM, right? Using other people's money. And don't get me wrong, this is the strategy I've used to continue to grow up my portfolio. But if this is your first deal, here's what you have to understand. First of all, even when you use OPM or other people's money and you syndicate and you're going to raise money, there's still going to be likely quite a bit of out-of-pocket expenses you're going to incur. So if you don't really have the capital to deal with that, it's going to be very, very tough for you, right? Think about it before you even close on a deal, right? Before you even close on a deal, in order to secure the deal, you're going to have to put up an offer and a purchase and sales deposit, right? And again, if you're dealing with high price points and in expensive markets, that typically can be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 right there. So there's cash infusion number 1. Then if you're going to raise money, you're probably going to have to hire an attorney to help you set everything up, especially if this is your first time. So you're going to incur attorney fees, startup fees from the LLC, the bank accounts, all that fun jazz. And it's not an insane amount of money, but it's more cash you're going to have to spend. And if you're going to be syndicating, it probably means you're going to be using either hard money or a commercial bank. And with both of them, you're going to incur fees right up front. They typically, both types of lenders have some sort of fees due when you sign the commitment letter to cover appraisal costs and any other costs that may be associated with the lender. So just before you even close on the transaction, you're going to be spending quite a bit of your own cash just to get it to close. Now, this also assumes that you're able to raise 100% of the funds before closing, right? And we've been in situations where prior to closing, we didn't have all the funds in-house, right? And that could be for various reasons. We've had reasons where, some investors are investing through their IRA, right? And that takes time. That usually takes multiple weeks coordinating between the custodians and everything. So we didn't necessarily have the funds in-house prior to close. So that means we had to essentially use our own cash to bridge the closing and actually sign the papers and then get refinanced out back later. You could also just have general investor timing issues. Maybe an investor said he'll be ready with 50,000 bucks, but something happened. He needs an extra week or two, but your closing's tomorrow or in a couple of days. So, you have to be ready as the operator of the deal to have some cash to be able to bridge that in order to close on the deal and then bring the rest of the investor money in-house later. So now that I kind of went over those two common strategies and what I think are some of the flaws with them for people that are brand new and looking to break in the game with zero money down, here's the best strategy, and here's what I actually did on the first couple of deals in order to break into the game. And it's very simple, right? Let's say you find an absolute killer deal, right? And you just don't have the financing, you don't have the balance sheet, you don't have the connections to pull this deal off, right? Here's what I suggest you do, is go connect with a local investor, local developer, whatever it is, and tell them, look, man, I've got this amazing deal. Why don't we partner on this? I'll take a small percentage. On my first couple of deals, I took as little as between 5 to 10%. Instead of taking the broker commission check if you're a broker or a wholesale fee if you're going to try to wholesale it to the guy, instead of doing that, negotiate yourself an equity position in a partnership, right? Because that way you're actually going to learn how to invest, right? You can see what an experienced operator does. You can see how he puts the deal together, how he structures everything, how he goes about closing it, and then how he actually goes about operating the property, right? So whether there's construction involved or just tenant management, whatever it may be, you can actually learn the real process behind it. Not only that, but then you can actually start building out your portfolio. You can start, if you do this a couple of times, you can tell lenders, well, look, I've got a couple of properties here, here, and here that I own positions in. Now you're starting to be a real investor, right? And that's literally the steps I took, right? I mean, it's definitely not as sexy as trying to do owner financing or trying to pull some crazy syndication. But it is definitely the way I would recommend because it's going to build out your portfolio over a period of time. You're going to get some amazing experiences. You're going to learn from good operators, from good investors that have more experience than you. And I think you're just overall going to have a lot more success using this strategy than trying to go on YouTube and learn owner financing subject to and all of that. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible because I know it's certainly possible. I know there's a lot of people doing it in different parts of the country. But if you're sitting in one of these really expensive markets or hyper competitive markets, my advice would be find the deal, go get an investor, negotiate some sort of partnership, and go from there. So hopefully you guys found some value from this video. I mean, I really hope you guys take notes because I spent so much time myself going through the weeds of all these different, crazy strategies that I never really ended up being able to use. So hopefully that helps, guys. If you guys have any questions, any comments, shoot them below. And if you guys found value, make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. That way you'll be notified every time I do a new video.